Summer sunshine is in full blast for us here across the Pacific Northwest as we continue to dive our way deeper into the summer season, and that's exactly where we will see ourselves over the next little while. Thanks so much for joining us here on this KOIN Plus special. I'm Chief Meteorologist Josh Cozart. We've got a lot to break down, especially when we're talking about the strength and energy that the sun provides us every single day. Always something that many of us get excited to see, especially when we start talking about the summer season. And right now, we're moving our way into August. So kind of waving goodbye to summer, but that doesn't mean we have to completely say goodbye to the sunshine that we've been seeing as of late, or that we will continue to see over the next several months as our daytime hours with daylight continue to shrink. But overall, it's pretty impressive when you think about the energy the sun provides us. If only there was a way to harness that energy and produce electricity like what you're watching right now. Well, there is a way. It's called solar power, and it's been something that scientists and even communities right here in the heart of Portland and many homeowners have been able to really kind of dive into to save money and also to help the environment. So this is what that special is all about. But you might be scratching your head thinking, hey, Josh, we live in the Pacific Northwest. Why are we talking about solar power when we really don't see that much solar activity? Well, quite the contrary. We actually see quite a bit of sunshine here, especially when we are talking about the summer months. So we're going to be breaking down this kind of visual, an average percentage of the sunlight. This data is coming in from the Portland National Weather Service from about 1951 to 1955. Yeah, a little outdated as far as the year time span goes, but it's still very relatively accurate for what we see. If anything, it almost seems like our summer months are getting longer. The stint of rain-free and cloud-free skies continues to add on it as well. So I think these numbers are going to be a little bit more on the conservative side than what we are seeing now, just about 30 years later. But as far as June, July, and August goes, those are the meteorological summer months. That's where we see some of our sunniest days, with the lack of cloud coverage really building across our area. You can see almost 70% just last month in July. When we're talking about this month, August, 66% of the daylight is what we receive within this month. Now, September, we still hold on to those bright sunny skies as we kind of tiptoe our way into the fall season. Now, fall doesn't typically start until the end of September. But again, we're breaking these down in the meteorological season. So we're talking September, October, and November as fall. And that's where we start to cloud up those skies. And we also start to lose a little bit of that percentage of daylight, along with the shortening of the days as well. Keep in mind, we're tilted, the Earth is. So as we start working our way into fall and eventually winter, the northern hemisphere, where we live in the Pacific Northwest, here in the Portland, Vancouver area, will start to tilt further away from the sun, thus meaning less daylight that we will be receiving. Thus the shorter days, the earlier sunsets, the later sunrises. That all plays into our climatological change that we're expected to see. But it's also those clouds that start to increase. And even with the topic being solar power and solar energy, you can still produce a lot of electricity even through that filtered daylight. So the Pacific Northwest, not a spot that should be shying away from the renewable energy resource of the sun, because it's our driving factor. You got to think about it as the culprit, the driver for all of our weather events, not only here in the Pacific Northwest or the Northern Hemisphere, but the globe. It's those really hot temperatures along with the overnight lows that Mother Nature is always trying to find some sort of equilibrium as far as the temperature goes. That's why we see everything, at least in our area of the globe, move from the west to the east. That's all driven by the sun. Now, if the sun can produce that much power to control the weather that we see and the climate that we see over a prolonged amount of time and on a daily basis for the weather, then just think, if we could harness that daylight, it would be oh so beneficial. Now, for those of you who are maybe seasonal depression people like myself, December, that's going to be our cloudiest month of the year, speaking percentage of sunlight. That's where we drop back to about 23%. And that's also where our shortest day of the year also lies. But after that, we start to gain the daylight, gets a little bit later into the evening, a little bit earlier in the morning. We slowly break down that cloud coverage as we work our way into the spring months. So we're talking about March, April, and May. Now, also keep in mind that it's not only our temperatures that play into, say, the trees transitioning from summer to fall, giving us the brilliant colors, or from winter to spring with the blooms and blossoms. It's mostly controlled by the energy of the sun and the amount of daylight we see with the daylight length, but also with the cloud coverage. It all works hand in hand. That's some pretty powerful stuff. The sun, the most powerful entity that we know of, and we can easily harness it right here in the Pacific Northwest. Now, I've been talking about those long and short days. Let's go ahead and break that down. So we just passed the summer solstice a little more than a month or so ago. That in June is where we picked up on 15 hours and 41 minutes, the longest day. Our sunset was at 9:03, a welcome sight for so many of us. After that turning point, it was July 8th that we started to see our last 9 o'clock hour sunset. From there, we have slowly been chiseling away at the daylight hours, both in the evening and in the early morning hours, eventually working our way towards the winter solstice in December, towards the end, about 8 hours and 42 minutes for the shortest day of the year. You pile on that cloud coverage, and that doesn't mean we get a lot of daylight, but we can still produce power from the lack of daylight even within that time frame. So it's pretty remarkable that we see here in the Pacific Northwest our fair share of sunshine, and it is such a welcome sight. So coming up in my next segment after our commercial break, we will be talking with a friend of KOIN 6, Jami Seymore. She is now over at the Energy Trust of Oregon here in the Pacific Northwest to give us a better insight on how we can harness the sun's energy, produce it to reduce our taxes, but also maybe our electric bill on a monthly basis. She'll have all of the questions and answers that you might have and how to watch out for scams as well. That's coming up next on this KOIN Plus special. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Of course, we just got finished talking about the sunshine seen here across the Pacific Northwest. And if you're unfamiliar with the Pacific Northwest, you might think that it is always cloudy, but that is not the case. And we have to really kind of be thinking about ways that we can harness the energy coming from the sunshine that we are abundantly seeing, especially during those summer months. And so I want to bring in one of our close friends here at KOIN 6, Jami Seymore, who is now with Energy Trust of Oregon. Jami, welcome back.
Good to see you again, Josh.
All right, we are talking things all solar power. And I really want to, before we kind of dive into that, tell folks who maybe did not watch back our previous discussion a few months ago about the air purifiers and wildfire smoke kind of being picked up here in the Pacific Northwest, which still is very relevant right now, so people can go back and watch that. But can you talk to us a little bit about what Energy Trust of Oregon does for us Oregonians?
Yeah. So Energy Trust of Oregon is a nonprofit created by the state of Oregon. And we just help people and businesses save money and save energy through their power bills. And some of the ways we do that are, like Josh mentioned, making it easier to know tips and tricks of keeping your air clean at home, but also connecting people with energy efficient resources and renewable power like solar energy.
And maybe what's one of the fastest resources that people can kind of dive into, not just our topic today, but any topics revolving around energy for us here in Oregon that people can kind of check out?
One of the first stepping points that you can do is just going to energytrust.com. We have a little bit of everything on there. Tips to save energy, ways that you can buy either heat pumps or air purifiers or anything that you can put in your home. We have DIY videos. So there's a little bit of everything depending on what you're looking for. If you want new insulation, if you're thinking about, okay, maybe I should get more efficient lighting in my house. We have all those tips and tricks, and correct myself, it's energytrust.org. So that's really good.
Energytrust.org.
Yep. So that is a great first point.
Perfect. Kind of what the one-stop shop. But of course, today we are talking about the abundant sunshine. We are in the heart of the summer season here in the Pacific Northwest, and we need to be taking advantage of all of that solar power that is being thrusted upon the sphere that we live on. Can you talk to me just a little bit about how people can harness that energy overall.
Yeah. Sunlight is amazing, and we have it even whether it's sunny out or even if you have clouds, you can use the power of that sunshine. So, one of the easiest ways to harness that is through solar panels, or a solar power system on your home. And those are installed on your roof and they can convert sunlight into electricity. And depending on your setup, it can either be distributed directly into the electric grid, or if you have a battery storage option, some of that can get stored in there as well so that you have power in the case of, say, a power outage, and keep some of those essentials on. And so this can be powered either by direct or indirect sunlight. So uh, right now, it's easy to go out, see the sunshine, enjoy the summer weather. But even in some of our cloudy days across here in Oregon, solar power still works. You might not think of it that way, but that indirect sunlight that comes in through the clouds and is reflected off, that can also be harnessed in by those solar panels.
And I almost kind of think of it as if people are unfamiliar with solar power, because it's been around now for just a little bit. And I remember it was so expensive to even buy something as simple as like the garden lights that were solar powered. Now the price has significantly come down just because that technology is a little bit more robust. And I've gotten the feedback from people saying, hey, it is always cloudy here in the Pacific Northwest. Why would you ever invest in solar power? But like you mentioned, it can still absorb the energy from the sun, even through that filtered cloud coverage, which even on our cloudiest days, sometimes we get a few breaks to get that direct sunlight. So even here in the Pacific Northwest, a great resource for us to be able to get some free energy our direction.
Yeah, and you mentioned people used to talk about how expensive it was, and it's much more attainable now. Energy Trust even helps with that. We help people save money on getting access to solar energy. You would start just by going to energytrust.org/solar. We can connect you with contractors. They can put discounts on the end of your bill. We offer people incentives or essentially just ways for people to save money on getting new solar panels on their homes. And we even have special, like even more to give for folks of lower incomes because everyone should be able to access the power of renewable solar energy and be able to save money. And what we've seen is those populations, they tend to spend a higher portion of their income on energy bills. So this is a really great way to give them access to be able to save energy at home.
A really great resource. And you kind of mentioned lower income, even though there's no correlation. But this also helps out people living in rural areas as well to be able to get direct energy right from where you're at. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the energy produced by the solar panels should overall be dropping our power bill potentially.
Yeah, most people do see savings. The way it works is that you'll essentially, whatever sunlight that your solar system pulls in, that is then distributed to the electric grid, and that can usually be credited back to your bill. So it's a really great way to not only save energy, kind of promote a green, healthy earth, but also saving money at the same time on your monthly bills.
And hey, well,
And
all of us really like to save money too. But I'm sorry I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
no worries. So you had mentioned rural communities, and this is actually a really great way to build resilience in those rural communities. We've seen during wildfire season and other times a year where there are either planned outages or even just a surprise outage. When you get a solar panel system with battery storage, and that stores some of that sunlight that's brought in before it goes back out to the electric grid, that helps make your home a little more resilient. So if there is an outage, you can still keep some of the essentials on, like thinking medical equipment, lights, refrigerator, well pumps, especially useful out in those rural communities and just to build that resilience.
And I've even seen, not so much that it directs us who are all having this conversation together, but I've been noticing even in downtown Portland, a lot more buildings kind of cropping up with the solar power. And that's kind of a good, safe backup, whether it be wildfire season where the rolling blackouts happen. To keep everything kind of moving efficiently. I almost kind of think of it for people maybe who are unfamiliar is it's almost like a generator, but it's just a giant battery that stores everything up for us.
Yep, and it works for homeowners and it works for businesses as well. Everyone can take advantage of this clean renewable power.
So, if somebody is interested in not only kind of finding all of this information out of who should I go with, there's something that we all need to kind of be cautious about. Here on KOIN 6 News, we've already been running some stories on individuals who have been scammed of just even roofing companies who have not been providing the jobs that they are asking for money for. And so scams, unfortunately, something we always have to talk about. Enlighten me on maybe some of the red flags that we should be looking out for as well.
Yeah, there is misinformation out there around the solar industry. Folks are particularly taking advantage of it right now because this is such a booming industry, even here in Oregon. And so we at Energy Trust, we support homeowners and businesses and try to connect them with trusted contractors. We have a whole network of them that we work with, and we can connect you with those folks just so you have a trusted experience. But there's also a lot to just look out for. You'll see a lot of these days social media ads, emails, things claiming $0 down today, or you'll essentially pay never pay an energy bill again. It's free. Your government will pay for it. They'll say organizations like Energy Trust are a part of it. What we're seeing now is like a lot of social media and emails, as well as door-to-door and phone sales. And a lot of these folks are completely unaffiliated with the solar companies. They are lead generators. They go out, they're trying to get folks to sign a contract quick, and then they'll sell those leads onto solar companies. And this is a really empowering experience, being able to access that solar energy. And so we just want to make sure people know that you don't have to rush into this decision. A lot of these sales tactics, they create a false sense of urgency. They'll tell you, all right, this deal is only good for the rest of the month, or you need to sign up by Friday. Like I said, $0 down. And these are all opportunities that they try to get folks to just get locked in, sign a contract really fast. They'll sell that information onto the solar contractors around the state. And so just do your research. You can request a bid on energytrust.org/solar and just do all the research you can. Get multiple bids, compare options, and don't feel pressured into one of these sales tactics or by any of that language that might promise free. There will always be a cost with this. Um, but just don't get fooled by some of those over-promising, because if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Unfortunately, yeah. And, when we're talking about the kind of investment that this really is, you're not going to see those huge savings in a moment's notice the first sunny day. It's going to take time to be able to see that benefit. So kind of keeping that in the back of your mind as well if you think that this is something that might benefit you as well.
Yeah, this is absolutely a long-term investment. It is very much worth it. It's makes your home more resilient, uh, helps make your home worth more when you have a solar system on there. But this is very much a long-term investment. You see those savings over the years. It's not an instant, okay, like if somebody tries to promise you next month, after you install this, you'll never have an energy bill again. That is not the case.
Unfortunately, we wish our energy bill was always at zero and we were making money.
That
um,
would be the dream.
it really would be. But you guys have some great resources. And say somebody has a question and they want to double check that maybe somebody knocked on their front door and said, hey, your house is prime for solar panels, maybe you tell that individual, well, let me get your information. Let me talk to Energy Trust of Oregon. What type of resources and connections are you able to make with people who might have questions?
Yeah, we have a lot of resources on our website. You can call Energy Trust of Oregon as well. We have folks that are available from our solar team that can answer these questions and confirm if anybody did reach out to you. Another good resource is to reach out to your utility provider. A lot of these folks might claim they work with PGE or Pacific Power, and just call your utility or reach out to them and double check some of this information. Make sure that they are who they say they are.
And I think that that is a big takeaway to just double and triple check. That way you don't become a victim of this potential scam that might be out there. But overall, solar power is not a scam itself. I know that some of the newer homes, in particular, my parents' house, which they moved into right around 2010 or so, already had some of the infrastructure built in that made it easier for companies out there to be able to install the solar panels onto the house and then directly plug it in. But maybe for those older homes, there's companies out there that can make sure that their house is able to connect up with this kind of new age way of energy.
Yeah, and one of the best things you can do is making sure your home is ready for the power of solar energy. It can be a huge help to help lower costs for families, and there are a lot of ways that people can access solar. But along with solar, we want to help people and businesses save energy, which can more immediately lower some of those costs. So we do that. We'll help people put in insulation, maybe afford things like energy efficient heat pumps or water heaters. Just think of it this way. The most affordable energy out there is the energy you don't use. When you don't use as much electricity or power, it's that much more money that you can save on your monthly bills. And so by focusing on different ways around the house that you can save energy, even putting weather stripping around, new insulation, that helps you maximize the effects and feel more ready to get solar energy. And when you're not essentially using as much energy, you can likely also get a smaller solar system. You might not need as much. That's the benefit of working with contractors and just getting some of these bids is they can take a look at your house, take a look at your roof, see what kind of system you may need based on how much energy you use.
And it even kind of comes down to which way your house is facing. If you have tree coverage over your house, maybe a better system for the contractor to discuss is going to be maybe the solar panels are not on the roof, but in the backyard if you have the space in maybe a rural area. So they're really going to be the experts that help you kind of pick the best scenario for where you live.
Yes, and our trusted contractors that we work with across the state, they are the experts on this. They can guide you every step of the way. So this doesn't have to be a scary process getting solar energy. The help is out there, the guidance is out there. You just have to make that jump and decide if you want solar for your house and if this is for you.
And we can direct all of our attention to Energy Trust of Oregon to make sure that we get that right and accurate information for all Oregonians here as we maybe start thinking about better ways of reducing our bill and then also helping the environment as well, because the sunshine definitely gives us a lot of energy. So, Jami, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it.
Of course. And if I can add just one thing, so there is currently a 30% federal tax credit. So if you were to put in solar this year, you can claim that credit when you file your taxes in 2026. Just a quick reminder that is expiring at the end of this year. But these energy trust resources that I spoke about, those will remain.
Time is of the essence to continue to save. Thank you again, Jami, so much for spending time with us. And I'm sure we'll be talking down the road about more future ways of saving money and also helping the environment.
Sounds good. Thanks, Josh.
We'll see you guys later.